Hello and welcome to GLC TV, a new YouTube channel where we might post some videos of Pokemon Gym Leader Challenge gameplay and deck lists. I'm your host Noah, aka TV Boy, and I'm a big fan of the Gym Leader Challenge format. This game we're about to watch was the finals of a GLC League tournament on September 2nd at the Clubhouse Game Store in Beaverton, Oregon. Played between myself and local well-known GLC player and psychic type lover Landon. For those who don't know, Gym Leader Challenge, or GLC, is an official custom format of the Pokemon TCG created by Andrew Mahone and recognized by the Pokemon Company, in which players use cards printed from the expanded era card pool of sets to build a deck with only Pokemon of a single type, and can only include a single copy of each card except for basic energy, and finally cannot use any cards which have a rule box, which includes things like V-Stars, EXs, Radiant Pokemon, and Aspect cards. I am playing the fighting type deck on the left, and Landon is playing his psychic deck on the right. This is the fourth match of the night after everyone else had finished playing, with both of us being undefeated in the Swiss rounds and playing for a badge on the store's wall and a free Stellar Crown pre-release kit. There were 10 players at this event, and this will be my second badge at our league if I can win, and my first fighting badge to go with my dragon badge. I wasn't really intending to record this, but the fact that I managed to make it to the finals, I was going to be playing against Landon and his psychic deck, which I knew was going to be a tough matchup. I just felt inspired to record the match and just to get it on video, and it turned out to be such a great match. I just felt like I needed to edit it and put it up on YouTube for people to enjoy. I might post another video going into more detail of how my fighting deck works and how to play it, but you can see both deck lists on the screen. My fighting deck is all about using Pokemon with powerful and very cheap attacks to attack quickly while generating lots of card advantage by using and reusing the stadium card Pokestop to draw from an abundance of items in my deck, many of which can either draw cards themselves or redraw the cards that I discard with Pokestop. Landon is playing his psychic deck that he has won several of our local tournaments with. Aside from no longer having access to Let Loose Marshadow, which was just recently banned, and unlike many GLC players, Psychic is the only deck Landon plays. But he plays it a lot and he knows his deck very well. His deck uses special energy to allow him to hit big numbers with Pokemon like Necrozma and Tinkaton, while also using the combination of Giratina and Munkidori to always have a big basic attacker available and throw the extra damage counters generated by Giratina's Shadow Impact back at the opponent's Pokemon with Munkidori's Adrena Brain ability. Kirlia and Gallade give him a powerful draw and supporter search engine, while Malamar keeps his Pokemon powered up and ready to attack. Wobbuffet slows the opponent down by shutting down their abilities while he gets his evolution Pokemon ability engines online. Landon wins the die roll in somewhat dramatic fashion and decides to go first. Before the Marshadow ban, which had just gone into effect the day before this tournament, Landon really liked to choose to go first, contrary to what most GLC decks want to do, because of how powerful it is to be able to dump your hand going first, play out all your cards, search for Marshadow with an item card, then draw 4 cards and put your opponent down to 4 cards before they can even take a turn. I suspected that by choosing to go first, he was either just playing first out of habit, or he might be rocking something like Red Card to replace what Marshadow could do on turn 1 for his deck. I don't have his deck list though when I was playing, so I was only guessing. Unfortunately for me though, my deck works much better when I can go first, so that I can start attacking with my stage 1s or my Okidogi with 2 energies before my opponent can get a chance to evolve. I want to call out that the video is a little bit out of focus here. It was, like I said, a spur of the moment thing to record this, and so hopefully for future videos we'll get that worked out and it'll be much higher quality, but enjoy the HD card images that show up for each card as they are played. So Landon starts off with a lone Ralts and a hand full of supporters he can't play since he's going first. He does play a Hisuian Heavy Ball though to search through his prizes to try to find some more basics. He doesn't find any though. He does flash his prizes up on the camera though for us to see, which I will put up on the screen for you all to be able to see what his prizes were. He has no other basics though to play and no items to play, so he just attaches a mystery energy to his Ralts and passes for the turn. I'm starting off with a lone drill burr, and honestly my hand isn't much better. My starting hand is full of recovery items as my deck is built around generating card advantage off of the Stadium Pokestop, with 31 item cards in my deck and using a lot of items to recover the Pokemon and energy that I discard to it. It's a deck I've been working on for quite a while now, and I'm really happy with how the current build is doing. I do find a judge off of a random receiver and joke about giving Landon a taste of his own medicine. But he gets a little too excited at the prospect of seeing a new hand, and I realize that his starting hand is probably pretty bad. Instead, I play the Pokestop in my hand, but unfortunately I don't find any setup or draw items off of my spin, but with only a Ralts in play, I don't feel like I'm in any danger of getting donked here, and like it's safe to wait one more turn to see if Landon's hand is bricked, and if I should just keep trying to play off the top with Pokestop. Landon finds a lucky level ball off of his draw for the turn, which will allow him to evolve into Kirlia, which is a great support Pokemon with a great draw ability, while also getting on its way to evolving into the even stronger attacker and support Pokemon of Gallade, which is one of the linchpin Pokemon in Landon's deck, allowing him to get any supporter from his deck each turn. Landon decides to go for a new hand with Iono rather than playing with the Arven in his hand, which makes a lot of sense when you think about the fact that I refused to play a supporter last turn when Landon knows I have Judge in hand. So that probably indicated to him that my hand was very strong, or I had a very important card in it that I didn't want to shuffle away. But truthfully, I am totally happy to see a fresh hand here at the expense of Landon's supporter for turn. And in fact, I drew into Karina, which is going to really help me set up and possibly give me a strong attack next turn. Landon uses Battle Compressor to start filling up his discard pile with a Tulip, an Energy, and a Giratina, indicating he's drawn into Versus Seeker, and showing his adaptability as a player and immediately finding a way to turn my own Pokestop against me by using it to fill up his own discard pile with potential targets for Tulip. And we see here he finds an Ultra Ball with the Pokestop while also discarding Gallade, which is now just another Pokemon that he can put into his hand next turn using Versus Seeker and Tulip. He uses the Ultra Ball discarding Lusamine to get Wobbuffet as his second basic to avoid losing the game next turn to getting his Kirlia donked. So Landon pivots with the Mystery Energy, putting the Wobbuffet in the active. Usually a very strong play with that Bide Barricade ability. However, I do wonder if it would have been better for him to put the Giratina into play and just switched into that, since Giratina has resistance to fighting. With just the lone Kirlia vulnerable on the bench, I was looking forward to playing Karina here to get Excadrill and either Escape Rope or Repel to force the Kirlia into the active and KO it before it can evolve into Gallade, except, of course, my Excadrill is prized. And unfortunately that means I won't be able to attack at all this round, as my only basic attacker requires 2 energy. So I pivot into getting my board set up and get every remaining basic Pokemon in my deck into play, getting Okidogi as my fighting Pokemon and Buddy Buddy Poffin as my item. But having the Excadrill stuck in the prizes also frustratingly means that my strong fighting energy, one of my most important damage boosters, is trapped on my Drillbur, which cannot evolve. But I use the Pokestop, and it does allow me to draw 3 cards this turn, getting Stadium Nav, Trekking Shoes, and Super Rod. That always feels great, especially when you can draw a draw item off of the Pokemon Stadium. And I go ahead and play the Stadium Nav here just to thin the deck to get the final 3rd Stadium out of my deck, as I already have my 2nd Stadium in my hand. However, my goal is to keep Pokestop in play for as long as I can and use it every turn to generate as much value as I can before Landon gets rid of it. Trekking Shoes here lets me discard Colress Tenacity since it won't be finding me any more Stadiums, and I already have the Unit Energy in hand. However, the Tenacity being in the discard pile is going to be relevant later on in the game. I attach Unit Energy to Okidogi and pass the turn. Normally, Okidogi is a Pokemon that I can just power up and steamroll through my opponents with for multiple prizes in the early game. However, I have to be much more strategic with how I deploy him in this matchup due to him being weak to Psychic, and Pokemon like Gallade having resistance, as well as Wobbuffet turning off the Adrena Power ability that boosts Dogi's damage. Landon continues to set up his board and is able to get Inkay with Mysterious Treasure, as well as some energy with Earthen Vessel, and is now going to be able to make his Tulip play. Attaches the third energy to Kirlia, and plays a Versus Seeker that we predicted he had in his hand to get Tulip back. He uses Tulip to recover Malamar, Gallade, and 2 energy. I think he may have mis-sequenced here. He could have spun the Pokestop and found another Pokemon, because Tulip is not restricted to 2 Pokemon the way that Clara is. So he spins the Pokestop after he plays the Tulip, probably as an afterthought, but it still works out. He got the cards he needed. He does find red card, which we also thought he might be playing, and he plays it immediately to send my hand back and put me down to 4 cards. So Landon does value the hand disruption that Psychic has available. Evolves the Kirlia into Gallade and passes, and I don't believe he did use Buddy Catch there, or at least I couldn't find it on the video. I don't remember what I lost from that hand, but I do remember that I drew into Buddy Buddy Rescue, Quick Ball, Night Stretcher, and Super Rod, and I drew Repel for the turn. So looking at my hand, I don't see much going on, so I decided to just spin the Pokestop first, and this spin might not look like much, but it was actually just what I needed for this situation to be able to pull off an attack, and I realized I might have a play here. So pretty much my only options for an attack here are either with Lucario or Okidogi, but to attack with either of them effectively, I'll need to get Wobbuffet out of the active spot, which is where Repel comes in handy. A card I love using in this deck, even though it's not as powerful as Boss's Orders. It can be drawn by Pokestop and played on the same turn as another supporter, which actually comes up a lot. Landon inspects my attackers once I play my Repel to see what I've got going on, looking at my Dogi and my Lucario, which I got back with Buddy Buddy Poffin. And I think he calculates that neither Okidogi nor Lucario are able to take a KO on his Gallade without a damage boost, due to Gallade's hefty -30 resistance, so he puts Gallade in the active instead of sacrificing his Inkay and giving me a prize. Now that Wobbuffet's out of the active though, I can use Roaring Resolve with Lucario to charge him up from the deck and start getting his powerful Aura Sphere Volley charged up, and then I'm able to use the Night Stretcher to get the basic fighting energy out of my discard pile to power up Okidogi, allowing me to use its Good Punch attack. Even though I don't get the knockout here due to the resistance, by leaving it on 10 HP, that's low enough that no matter what I draw into next turn, I'll still be able to finish it off with the burn damage from the Hisuian Growlithe. Landon is now able to evolve Inkay into the Malamar that he got from his Tulip last turn, and plays the Giratina from his hand that was returned by Buddy Buddy Rescue. This Giratina also has fighting resistance of 20 and 130 HP, meaning that I will need to use a card like Grant to be able to knock it out in one hit with any of my attackers besides Okidogi or Lucario. Malamar on the bench and Wobbuffet equipped with a Float Stone. Landon's deck is starting to get set up very nicely now, and he uses Buddy Catch to get Professor's Research, to discard Raihan and a useless item and draw a fresh hand of 7. Off of his Professor's Research draw, he doesn't find a Stadium to bump the Pokestop, but does decide to use the Field Blower to cut me off from getting more resources from my Pokestop, at least temporarily. However, since he didn't draw his Dimension Valley Stadium, his only option to attack with this round is going to be Gallade, which puts Landon in a tough position, as he'll have to sacrifice one of his strongest support Pokemon if he doesn't want to fall behind on the prize race next turn. But Gallade is still a great attacker, even if you have to sacrifice it, as its Swirling Slice attack lets you preserve one of its energy cards, moving the mystery energy to the Necrozma on the bench. Losing the Pokestop there is rough, but luckily I draw into an Acro Bike to dig for more cards. At this point I remember that I had Quick Ball, Super Rod, and Acro Bike in my hand, putting me in a tough spot of how to manage my hand. I really don't like discarding my recovery cards in this deck, so I decide to Super Rod, Okidogi, and 2 energy back into the deck. First, one of them getting sucked up by Roaring Resolve, and then seeing what I can find with Acro Bike before choosing to use the Quick Ball in case it's a supporter. I remember thinking, I really wish this Acro Bike was a bicycle after I drew the Acro, and lo and behold, my Acro Bike finds me a bicycle, one of the strongest items in a deck like this, allowing me to draw 3 without playing a supporter. And I find a Gutsy Pickaxe, Rainbow Energy, and Professor's Research. I decide to thin my deck with the items I found first, playing the Gutsy Pickaxe, which finds me a Judge Whistle, which suddenly gives me access to another supporter, the Judge that was discarded by Pokestop earlier in the game. I thought about it for a few seconds, but decided that Research was going to be the better supporter for the turn, and decided to just draw one more card with the Whistle, which was Hisuian Arcanine, which I evolve almost immediately. But I'm now down to just Quick Ball and Rainbow Energy, and I can only play one of them if I want to play the Research. In hindsight, I think what I should have done here was discard the Arcanine to the Quick Ball to get Okidogi, and then attach the Rainbow Energy to that. And then just use Singe on Growlithe to knock out the Gallade, which would have had the extra benefit of not turning on Teammates if Landon still had that in his deck. But instead I attached the Rainbow Energy to Lucario instead, thinking I might need to get lots of damage if Landon plays Luxcape. And then I play the Research to refill my hand. I draw into a bunch of energies and supporters other than Donphan, and decide to just take the knockout with Proud Fangs. Had I used Singe there, I would have prevented Landon from using a card like Teammates due to how status damage is suffered between turns instead of during my turn as the attacker. But I was hoping that, at least with Gallade gone, Landon wouldn't be able to go and find Teammates out of his deck if he was playing it. Instead, Landon had a supporter that was arguably even better than Teammates, which was Guzma, to gust up my already heavily damaged Lucario. KOing my Lucario has the two-pronged effect of removing it as an attacker, but also removing my only damaged bench Pokemon that was powering up Arcanine's Proud Fangs attack. Landon uses Necrozma here instead of an opportunistic KO with Wobbuffet on my damaged Lucario, as he knows that both Donphan and Arcanine hit for 120 and Necrozma has 130 HP, using that special laser attack to knock me out. Luckily though, I have plenty of damage boosters in my hand from last turn's Research, and my Donphan will be able to knock out Necrozma and put damage counters on my bench to set up Arcanine's attacks as well, thanks to my Practice Studio Stadium, which boosts all of my Stage 1 Pokemon's attacks by 10 damage, helping Pokemon like Donphan and Arcanine hit that crucial magic damage number of 130. The reason I play the Stadium instead of the Martial Arts Dojo is because I like that it always works even when I'm attacking with something without a basic fighting energy, as I often will use my Rainbow Energies to power up my Stage 1 attackers as well, and of course Hisuian Arcanine doesn't attack with energy, so it doesn't work with him unless you attach. And with this deck I'm usually very rarely behind on prizes. I use Battle Compressor to thin out some cards that I don't want to draw, because I already have Grant in my hand, which is the main reason to play the Compressor. I decide to play Lusamine on this turn so that I'll have Pokestop in hand for next turn and still be able to play Grant as my supporter next turn if I need to. And I decide to get back Karina as my second most useful target. I KO Necrozma with Donphan's Earthquake attack, spreading 20 damage to Arcanine and Drillbur on the bench. Landon has Munkidori to fill the newly vacant bench slot, and ends up using Colress's Tenacity to get a simple basic Darkness Energy out of his deck. While that might seem like an underwhelming use for a supporter, I actually love that Tenacity can get any energy and not just special energy. It makes the card so much more flexible than it might have otherwise been. Palpad is used to recover Raihan and Iono back into the deck. Palpad is a card that I love using in any deck that has abilities to search out supporters, including Dragon and Water. And of course, Landon's deck runs Gallade, and it makes Palpad feel like a second, even better copy of Versus Seeker. Landon power up his Giratina, then brings it up to the active spot using Wobbuffet's Floatstone to retreat. But then he plays Parallel City just to bump my practice studio, hoping to prevent me from combining the extra 10 damage with something like a Muscle Band to boost my Earthquake damage up to the 150 number I'll need to break through Giratina's minus 20 fighting resistance. This Darkness Energy will turn on the Monkidori's Adrena Brain ability, which goes perfectly with Giratina's Shadow Impact attack. Which puts 4 damage counters on one of Landon's benched Pokemon. Donphan's 150 HP manages to withstand Giratina's attack, and now I have a chance to get ahead on prizes. Of course, Donphan's days are still numbered here thanks to Monkidori's ability, but this still means I get to have one more attack out of Donphan before it goes down. First though, I re-establish my Pokestop engine and take it for a spin. Town Map is a great item to find here though, as it will finally allow me to get Excadrill out of the prizes, as well as to grab Field Blower as my next prize. Seeing the Dogi get discarded is unfortunate, but I still have Rescue Stretcher and Ordinary Rod left to recover Pokemon, so it's okay. And now it's time to play my trump card in Grant, which gives my fighting Pokemon plus 30 damage for the turn and can be redrawn from the discard pile at any time, allowing Donphan's Earthquake to power through Giratina's resistance to take a KO. And finally get Excadrill into my hand, and temporarily at least, pull ahead in the prize race. Landon certainly isn't out of the game yet though, and he's about to show off what makes the Psychic deck so powerful. Landon promotes Wobbuffet as his active and decides to spin the stop, and importantly finds Escape Rope while losing counter energy. He then uses Monkidori's Adrena Brain ability to transfer 3 damage counters from itself to Donphan, taking the mid-turn KO and squaring up the prizes to 3 each. I promote Arcanine as my active to protect Drillbur so I can evolve it next turn, as Arcanine's Proud Fangs will become useless if Drillbur gets knocked out, but Landon has the Escape Rope off the Pokestop to force my Drillbur into the active. Landon switches in his Monkidori, which he's unable to retreat back to the bench via an air balloon, back into Wobbuffet after Malamar powers it up while it's on the bench. And a Recycle Energy on Tinkatink makes it possible backup attacker ready to go if Landon can find either Tinkatuff or a rare candy. And Landon uses Giratina's Distortion Door to put a damage counter on Arcanine while it's still on the bench, which in combination with Monkidori's damage counter next turn will give Wobbuffet a lethal attack against Arcanine. Landon could have actually saved the Escape Rope there by using Monkidori to KO the Drillbur instead of Donphan, and then attacking with Wobbuffet to take out the Donphan in the active. But regardless of that, this play was absolutely devastating to my board state, as I am now left with only Arcanine in play with no bench to put damage on. Excadrill now stuck in my hand instead of in my prizes, and all of my other basic Pokemon now in the discard pile. I don't find anything useful off of my draw for the turn, so I start by using the Pokestop to see what resources I'll have access to. And my goodness, was this just the absolute perfect spin. Ordinary Rod and Ultra Ball to the rescue. I look at the rest of my hand, which has Special Charge and Versus Seeker, and I realize I might actually have a way out of this terrible situation. I play the Ordinary Rod to shuffle Okidogi, Drillbur, and 2 energy back into the deck, which now means I have enough attackers in my deck to be able to take the remaining 3 prize cards I'll need to win the game. I then use Ultra Ball to fish Okidogi out of the deck, discarding an energy and Explorer's Guidance. Explorer's Guidance, definitely a fantastic recent addition to my deck. However, with Landon only having 2 prize cards left to take, I don't see myself having much time to play the Guidance before the game is over. But I'm actually thinking about adding a second copy since Hapu does the same thing. Then I play Special Charge to put Rainbow and Strong Energy back into the deck. And then I play Versus Seeker to get back Chorus's Tenacity, which you'll remember I milled into the discard pile off of a Trekking Shoes way back in the beginning of the game, and will now allow me to pull the Rainbow Energy I just shuffled back into the deck into my hand and onto the Okidogi, powering him up for next turn, but importantly activating Arcanine's Proud Fangs attack with the damage counter from the energy, allowing me to take the response KO on Wobbuffet. Landon just needs to take 2 more prize cards here, but unfortunately his Tink-a-Tink has not evolved yet, and he reveals that his rare candy is still prized, which he may have forgotten when he attached the recycle energy to it last turn. Additionally, he has no energy in hand and no way to get back Dimension Valley, as Cynthia and Caitlyn, Versus Seeker, and Lusamine are all in the discard pile. It was unfortunate that he had to discard his Lusamine to Ultra Ball back on turn 2 after he had discarded Cynthia and Caitlyn to Pokestop, as together those 2 supporters would allow him to keep his Dimension Valley in play indefinitely to help power up his attacks, which makes them a very useful combination of supporters to keep together. He thins the deck by using Buddy Buddy Poffin to get out Bench Barrier Mew, but it seems he made a tiny but costly mistake by attaching the energy to Tink-a-Tink last turn instead of to Giratina. Instead of powering up Tina with Malamar and Night Stretcher to get an energy into hand, Landon has to use the Night Stretcher to get back Wobbuffet, and use Psychic Recharge to put an energy on Wobbuffet to take the KO next turn on Arcanine. He sets up Arcanine with the 6th damage counter with Adrena Brain, and then has to retreat into the Mew to sacrifice it. So I want to give Landon some credit. I think his thought process for winning the game here is that he's hoping that I don't have a way to get Drillbur into play next turn, or that I'll discard it off of Pokestop. And if my Arcanine knocks out Mew, Landon can promote Wobbuffet and knock out Arcanine. And then, if I wasn't able to get Drillbur in time to evolve into Excadrill, my Okidogi won't be able to return KO the Wobbuffet because of Bide Barricade turning off Adrena Power. And then Landon will be able to switch in Tinkaton to take the final KO on Okidogi for the win. Munkidori does have an attack for 2 energy that does 60 damage and confusion, but because Arcanine is weak to Grass and not Psychic, it would leave Arcanine alive with 10 HP, and require leaving Wobbuffet in the discard pile to use the Night Stretcher. I do think this may have been the better play though, as it would have forced my next prize to be taken on a coin flip, and risk Arcanine potentially KOing itself to confusion. But hindsight is always 20/20, and Landon passes with Mew in the active and both players at 2 prizes remaining. But things are now looking extremely good for me, and I feel like I now have a clear path to victory, as I do in fact have Korrina in my hand to get the Drillbur out of my deck. My deck is also extremely low on cards, but not so low that I'm in danger of decking out, which is a great spot to be in when I still have Excadrill in the wings, and Pokestop to help me control the number of cards in my deck to make sure that my 11th hour tackle will be doing 180 damage, and I also have Grant in my discard pile and a healthy hand size. I use Energy Lotto to get back the strong energy that I shuffled into the deck last turn. And at this point I realize that an Iono would be extremely crippling to me if I take this knockout and go to 1 prize, and that Landon has Iono in his deck because he shuffled it back in with Palpad. So at this point I'm just trying to do whatever I can to thin out my hand, so I discard things like Evolution Incense, even though I can't get anything out of the deck. I attach Luminous Energy to Drillbur here since it won't work on Okidogi with Rainbow Energy, and Arcanine takes its 3rd KO of the game with Proud Fang to go down to 1 prize remaining. Landon is finally able to evolve his Tink into Tinkaton, But at this point, Landon pretty much needs an Iono or N to stop me, as I still need an Energy or Excadrill to be able to take my final KO. But Landon goes to play Cynthia as his supporter for turn to draw the rest of his deck, and here I actually suggest that he could have drawn with Tinkaton instead to dig for the Iono, instead of playing a supporter for turn, and we agreed to say that he discarded the Cynthia to use Gather Materials instead of as his supporter for turn, because I think that games are more fun when you play them that way. Unfortunately, he did not find the Iono off the Gather Materials, and is just able to use Psychic Recharge to power up and retreat into Wobbuffet, attaches Fighting Fury Belt, and takes the KO on the Arcanine. If Okidogi had been my only attacker, Landon would have actually won, as Bide Barricade reduces Dogi's damage, but I'm able to evolve to Excadrill, Field Blower his Fighting Fury Belt, use 11th Hour Tackle for 180 damage, and take my final prize.
Ooh, that was a close game, dude. Good game. Yeah, that was so close.
Thank you everybody for watching that game. Thank you to Landon for letting me record and put it up. Thank you to the Clubhouse games over in Beaverton for hosting these GLC tournaments. Make sure you check out their store. I'll post a link in the description. They're moving to a new location, so they're going to have a grand reopening very soon. And I hope you all enjoyed that. If you want to see more of this, please make sure you subscribe so you'll get an alert. I don't know how often we'll be able to post these up. The editing was pretty intense, I have to say. So probably every couple of weeks might throw one of these up there and for you all to enjoy. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time.